Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome back to another video, and today we are doing the 5th video in my TBR completion project. We are sort of over halfway there now, which is crazy. If this is the first time you have seen one of these videos, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to watch my June TBR, and then whatever books are unread on that TBR I'm going to be reading in the second half of this video, which will be a reading vlog. I have a playlist which I'll leave in the description box up in the cards with all the other videos in this series. So I've had a few comments on the previous videos from people telling me that even though I never have successfully completed a TBR this year, I've done a pretty decent job at reading most of the books on each of those TBRs. And to all those comments, I have responded, just wait, there is a TBR video coming up where I've read basically none of the books. And today we are reacting to that TBR. Ugh. I distinctly remember tragically failing my June TBR because it was the first time I had co-hosted a readathon. I was a co-host for the Olympic Games readathon in June, which was created by my friend Ishi. I'll have the details linked down below if you want to participate in any future rounds that we may have. I remember having a conversation with Ishi and I think the other co-hosts, and we all did really terribly at following our TBRs. But I not only failed the Olympic Games readathon, I also was originally planning to partake in the Mythtake readathon created by Ashleigh from Frolic Through Fiction, and also Charlotte, who I believe has a blog, and I didn't read a single book for that readathon. What I'm hoping is that some of these books that are on this TBR I've read later on in the year and I just don't remember, but I really highly doubt that's the case. I'm scared. Okay, here we go.
There are 2 other books I will be reading in June that I did not originally include in this TBR, White Fidelity and White Rage.
I think I read one of these, but I know I didn't read either of these in June. Okay, I went on Goodreads to check, and I don't think I read either of them. I think I was thinking of Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People.
I decided to use the group book, which is The Lovely World.
I didn't read it.
For this, I selected Page of Soul.
I haven't read it.
I decided to listen to the audio of Load Star.
Okay, I actually read this one.
And I've decided to read The Godfather.
So The Godfather was the one book on this TBR that I read in June. So everything from here on out, I likely have not read. Anyway, I really liked The Godfather. It's one of my favourite reads of this year.
And I'm going to be reading this piece, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norwell. I'm actually going to also be...
So I didn't complete Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell until I think September. You're actually going to see this book on my next like 3 or 4 TBRs. I eventually got it read. Didn't read it here, but I don't have to read it for this video that I'm making. Thank God. Really, thank God. I don't know how I would have coped if I had to read that book in a week.
Is to read a book that you have heard good things about. And for this, I'm going to be reading A Close and Common Orbit.
I didn't read that. I tried to read this book like a month ago as well, and I decided I need to read the first book again because this is the second book. Damn it.
For this, I have selected Cry as War.
I didn't read this one either.
For that, I have selected Witch Sign.
Okay. I wish I could just reach into the screen and whack past Nicole with some sense. Like, that is just way too many books that she did not read. I think can I do it? I don't know. Okay. I need to go and process this. Okay, it is Wednesday, so we're starting this vlog late. These are the books that are on my physical TBR, so I think I might save this for next week. I know this one shows up in another future TBR as well. So this one, A Cage of Souls, is the biggest book on this week's TBR, I think. I'm feeling pretty positive about it just since I read Adrian Trukowski's other book in the first vlog in this series, Children of Time, and I found that to be a really relatively quick read and quite easy to get into, so I'm hoping that is the case with this one. Cry as War. I think I can finish this in an afternoon. This is a YA fantasy, so they usually are my fastest reads. Then we have Witch Sign. This is an adult fantasy book I don't know a whole lot about, so I'm really interested to finally get to this one. I bought it over a year ago. I'm going to start listening to White Rage. I got the audiobook for that and I'm going to listen to it while I'm getting ready for bed tonight. And I want to get that done by Friday, and by Sunday night I want to finish White Fidelity. And I have made a start on The Lovely War, which is the 3rd audiobook that will be read in this video. This book starts off and we see the love affair between Aphrodite and Ares, you know, the god of love and the god of war, and they get caught by is it Hephaestus? I'm terrible with the gods and their names, so forgive me. But they get caught by Aphrodite's husband, who is Ares. Is Ares? How do you say Ares with like an S on the end? Who is Ares' brother. They're sort of on trial for their affair, but it ends up being Aphrodite retelling like a love story between Hazel and James. So that we go back in time, and Hazel and James were young during the First World War, and James was a soldier, and we're just sort of seeing their romance and the other people that they meet during this time. The audiobook is so good, like the full cast. And my favorite bit is like all the gods, the Greek gods in like the hotel room, just listening to Aphrodite telling her story. So I was originally going to read this for the Olympic Games Readathon because it was our group book pick. We found out very shortly after the readathon started that this book used the N-word. So I knew going into this that there was use of the N-word, but like the amount of times it is used has surprised me. So that's making me uncomfortable. And the other thing is, I will say, I think I'm starting to lose interest. Like the beginning of it, the actual story and the setup was like a 5 stars. Now it's gone down to about a 3.5. I feel like I know where this is heading. Not in terms of the gods, like their storyline, I don't really know where that's going. So that's definitely where I'm most invested. But most of this story is Hazel and James's love story, which is sort of your typical World War I love story. Okay. It is Friday and I did manage to complete The Lovely Wall yesterday, and unfortunately that book is a 2-star read for me. I don't think I really emphasized this enough in my first clip, but I loved the beginning of this book. It gave me 5-star feels. I love the setup with these gods and the bickering between them, and the audiobook narration and music score was just so good. As the story went on, I gradually lost interest. Granted, I do think part of it is a me thing. I don't think I like World War I or World War II romance stories. I just find them all to be the same. And I talk about this a lot on my channel, but books I appreciate are books that bring something new to the table, that are unpredictable, that take me on a journey that I don't know where it's going to go. There was also a couple of things that happened in this that I think were questionable and made me uncomfortable. One particular thing, and something that I've been thinking about since I finished this book yesterday, is something happens to Hazel, who is the girl love interest of the romance that Aphrodite is retelling. There's something that happens with Hazel at the very end of the novel that I did not really like, and it's the kind of whole reason why Aphrodite chose their romance in particular as an example of great love and to share with the other gods. To vaguely give an explanation without spoiling what actually happens, it's one of those situations where it's like, I will love you no matter what because there's been a change to the character. I don't know if that's going to make sense to anyone. My plan was to listen to the audiobook of White Rage after I finished Lovely Wall, which I did start doing. I listened to the introduction and the first chapter of White Rage, and I hated the narrator. I could not stand the narrator. She literally, no joke, sounds like Siri's sister. I'm going to have to read it via ebook, which unfortunately means it's going to take me longer than I anticipated to read, because ebooks take me the longest to read out of any formatting of book, because I read them on my phone and I just can't like sit there for a long period of time and read it. So I'm going to try and get it done by this vlog. So because the audiobook of White Rage was such a flop, I ended up starting to listen to White Fidelity, which is another non-fiction audiobook about race. This one though is written by a white woman and she is a sociologist. I've listened to a pretty decent proportion of it actually already, so I think I might be able to get that done by probably tomorrow morning. I did read the first chapter of Cry's War, and I think I'm going to read a good proportion of this before bed tonight. I'm looking forward to this one though. I've heard really great things, and there's an enemies to lovers romance in this, so I'm excited for it. Would you believe me if I told you it is currently summer where I live? I also think we're about to have a storm come because all the clouds have just come in. Hang on, let me turn on. Okay, hopefully that lighting is decent. I finished White Fidelity. I didn't give this a rating because if you don't know, I do not rate non-fiction books. I like this. I know a lot of people say about this book that it isn't the best option or the first book someone would recommend if someone is looking for a book on racism, and I completely agree, especially since it's written by a white person. But I think if you are a white person and you want to read about racism, I still recommend this. I still think there's like value to get out of this book. I particularly really liked how it talked about white children, how we're sort of taught to not even mention race at all. White Rage, I've read a couple more chapters of. Oh, I don't think I said this, but these two books were originally for a buddy read that Shae from Books with Shae hosted. I did watch the live show for that when it happened, even though I didn't read the books. I'm pretty sure it's still up. I'll leave it linked in the description box for you to check out. Now, the other books I've made some progress on. I completed Cry's War. I did like this. I decided on a 3-star rating for this. I think I in part went into this book with the wrong expectations because it had been sold to me as an enemies to lovers romance, and it is that, and I think I just needed to sort of change my perception or expectations. Whenever someone says enemies to lovers, my ideal enemies to lovers romance is like more of a slow burn with like a lot of tension, whereas in here these two definitely start out as enemies and they very quickly grow affectionate for one another. It is enemies to lovers, but it isn't slow burn, and for some reason in my head, as soon as someone says enemies to lovers, my brain immediately adds slow burn. Now, this book we follow two characters and we get both of their perspectives. We follow Ayla, who is a human and all her family has been killed, and she is on a request for revenge. She wants to take revenge against the Automay royal family. They're sort of a royal family. They are man-made humans. And then the second perspective we follow is actually the daughter, Cryer, which is who Ayla is hoping to have her revenge against, because Cry's father is the one who is responsible for the death of Ayla's family. I knew going into this was about Automay and robots. Granted, I haven't read many stories about robots, but I always find it really interesting that they choose to live and mimic human society. In here, honestly, there's really no difference between the Automay and the humans, apart from the Automays are made and they have like extra strength and stuff. I just think it would have been so interesting to have seen how these Automays, who were made by the humans and then destroyed human society and then taken over it, if they run it in a different way. I just think that would have been such a cool opportunity to explore a different society. And I think also if you're going to go to the length of inventing like these Automate characters, I think it would have been cooler to add more nuance to them, and that wasn't done. So I think that was kind of a disappointment for me. The other thing I would say is I found Ayla to be a really interesting character, but on the flip side I found Cryer, who is the Automate, to be the boringest character. She was so bland to me. She has a fiance who's really interesting and he's part of like rising group of Automate. Her father's a really interesting character, but she's just boring. I just really didn't like reading from her perspective. I believe this book is only a duology, so I think I will give the second and final book in this duology a try, because I do want to see how it ends up. While I still really thoroughly enjoyed it and would still recommend it, I just think it would have been so cool to explore the Automate a bit more, not just how they were made, but how they work in society in comparison and in difference to the humans did. And I think that also would have complemented Cry's character and made her more interesting. Anyway, I also made a start on Cage of Souls. I'm 343 pages in, so I just got up to part 4. I was hoping to actually finish this yesterday, but unfortunately, I'm not loving this, so it's taking me slower than I thought it would. This book starts off with like the best setting. Like, I loved the setup of this book. We are on this boat and there's all these convicts on this boat and it's set in the future. Adrian Sikowski is an adult sci-fi author, so a lot of his books are sci-fi set in the future related. I think he does have a few fantasy books, but I'm not entirely sure. He's written a lot. We start off and we're following this boat of convicts and they're being taken to this island, which is essentially a prison. This island, it's kind of got all these like mutant animals and there's all this like sort of danger, and it's like this wild jungle. There's a lot of mystery, and these prisoners who are kept on the island work as sort of miners and they do jobs. The way this beginning of this was set up, it really did seem like a survival story. When we are on the boat at the very beginning with the other convicts, one of them falls off the boat into the water and is killed by some sort of water creature, which was really interesting, and I was really ready for this sort of survival story amongst these convicts. It ends up more being a story about Stephen, our main convict that we follow, and we sort of see him interacting with the other convicts, and we learn about Stephen's past and why he and how he became a convict and what led him to be at this prison. And then we also learning about the other convicts, and I'm just not interested. not caring. I said this when I read Children of Time, but Adrian Kukowski's characters aren't characters that you really relate to. They're more characters trying to deliver a concept. Although I think people could maybe really like these characters. I don't know, I just feel like he leans more towards concept heavy characters than relatable characters that you empathize with. And this is a very character driven story and I'm not loving it. I just wish there was more going on, especially since we have such a cool setup. Final update for this vlog. I'm so sad because this book was a 1-star read for me and it is the second 1-star read for me in December. It's too early to have this many 1-star reads. This overall was just incredibly boring for me. I thought there were too many characters because there was 2 timelines in this. So we had the present timeline where Stefan, the main character, has gone to the prison island and he meets all the other prisoners, and we have a group of prisoners that he meets, and there's also a warden, officer, guard person that we also meet, so we get to know them. And then we have a past timeline where we are learning about Stefan and why he ended up on the prison island and the events that led up to that, and also the people who were involved. So there's another group of people in his past timeline when we are learning about him and his role in this criminal underworld. It sounds so cool, but I think that the delivery of this was what really missed the mark for me. This book is an example of too much telling and not enough showing. There was so many interesting things, but most of this book made up dialogue and monologues and I just was not interested. I'm so disappointed because when I read Children of Time in the first vlog in the series, I really thought Adrian Kukowski was on his way to being a new favorite author of mine, and unfortunately he probably isn't. I will give another of his books a shot, but I'm going to be more selective about what books of his or which books of his I decide to pick up in future. I'm actually really bummed about this. I was really thinking I was going to enjoy it, but here we are. I've also completed White Rage. It talks about the history of the events after the Civil War and how Black Americans were treated. Afterwards, there's a particular focus on Jim Crow and the South. I think it's important to just keep in mind that this book kind of relies on you to have prior knowledge, I reckon, sometimes. I found there were quite a few instances where they would just name drop events, places, people, and I didn't know those people or have the cultural or context knowledge of what the book was referencing, because I'm not American, I'm Australian, and we don't get taught American history here. I'm really glad I picked up the ebook because there's quite a few times I had to pause and I would have to look up at a name or an event that was just dropped in a sentence. One example was Ruby Riggs, who was a 6-year-old Black child who was the first Black child to go to a white school when the schools were merging. Her name was just dropped and referenced in a sentence. I'm I don't know any of the context behind her. Just keep in mind that even though this book is short, it's not even 300 pages, that there is a lot of extra or additional reading that you have to do if you don't know American history. Another thing to just be aware of is there's extreme graphic details of the lynchings that occurred in the South. And yeah, no rating for that one. I don't rate non-fiction. So I do have 2 books that I have not gotten to this week, and that is A Close and Common Orbit and Witch Sign. I'm going to save these for next week's vlog because I don't have that many books on next week's vlog and I want to be reasonable for once. So you'll have to wait and look forward to my thoughts in the next vlog for these. Sorry, this vlog is also going to be late. Next week is going to be the week I catch up. That is the plan. I've just gotten a bit sick, so things have slowed down once again, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have made it this far, put the teddy bear emoji in the comments section. I don't know why I want that emoji, but I think it'll just be cute to see some teddy bears in my comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you're enjoying whatever you're currently reading, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!